Welcome everyone, it's good to have you all here. I'm Mark Boyling, I'm Dean of Carlisle. Great to have you here in the cathedral this evening. An inspired choice of music, I thought, the rainbow theme to begin. As you'll see, there's one family group yet to arrive, and I said that when they do get here, if they ever get here, then they'll just be brought straight to their places, and that'll be fine. So, welcome all. It's a great pleasure for the cathedral to greet as many as we can here in the building, and we hope a large number who are joining us online as we live stream this event. We gather to give thanks for all that has been and all that is being achieved by the health and care services across Cumbria during the pandemic. And remember too the personal cost of that achievement. And how can we not on this day realise that the challenge will continue? It's a great pleasure to welcome dignitaries from across the county today. To have the Lord Lieutenant here is a great thrill for us, as always, and the Chairman of the County Council, Councillor Christine Bowditch, you're most welcome. Sadly, the High Sheriff, who had planned to come, can't be here, he's having to self-isolate, but is joining us online, so welcome to you, Julie. And one of the Morecambe Bay chaplains is similarly self-isolating and so can't be part of the music group later in the event. And the three choristers who we wonderfully found to sing at this event, simply they are also having to self-isolate. And I'm grateful to Margaret, one of our consort singers, for coming to sing in their place tonight. Now, speaking parts are being taken, as I see it very properly, by those who work in the North Cumbria Integrated Care Foundation Trust, in the Morecambe Bay Foundation Trust, and the Cumbria Northumberland Tyne and Weir Foundation Trust. That's just as it should be. Councillor Bowditch will read on behalf of those who work in the care sector. Chaplains from across the county are also present today from different trusts, and it's a pleasure to welcome the church leaders. They too will be a part of this event. I think there are a number of things I could say, but really that's enough to start. My thanks to all those who have helped shape this event, who have worked hard to make it as inclusive as is possible. So now, an opening prayer. Holy Lord, make us always thankful for your gifts of grace and health. Teach us to safeguard the things that make for wholeness in our lives and the life of our community. Deepen our compassion for those who suffer, and help us to use the days of our strength in the service of those in need. Lord, hear our prayer. Amen. You'll see from the front cover of the paper that you have that we aim to do 4 things this evening. And the first section helps us to remember, especially what was being faced in the first lockdown period. And I first invite Maria Heslop to come to read her poem.
Good evening. My day. My nerves are shot. The night was long. I'm due to start my shift. I'm hoping that I don't break down and these hours will be swift. As I look upon the staff today, they appear to share my tension. The huddle's done, the stats we know, and the deaths we had to mention. We start the meds, it takes so long, but we do it as a team. She'll read the chart, I'll dish the pills, it's harder than it seems. My lip is hot, my brow is sweating, but I mustn't touch my face. They said my mask would last 6 hours, and I hope that is the case. My throat is dry, my hands are rough, I feel my head start aching. I'm trying hard to stop myself, but my body now is shaking. Washing's done, then start the obs, our routine stays the same. But a news of 8 is now nothing new, but we'll have to up our game. I can't believe it's come to this. I'm doing what I can. The emergency buzzer starts to ring. That's when I up and ran. They told us that we should not come until we're gowned and ready. When someone's fighting for their lives, it's hard to go that steady. I don my mask, apron, gloves and pinny too. I promise I am on my way, I will get into you. But all you want is to ask me why I don't come when you call. I'm trying hard to get there quick, I promise to you all. A quick sit down to eat some food as I think of what's to do. There's obs to do, meds to give and IVs to get through. I'd usually stop and chat to you and we'd sing a song together. We're so short-staffed, it's really hard, but I know it's not forever. Do you remember me? We met last year, you had your hip replaced. But you're dying now, but you're not alone, as I gently stroke your face. I'll place my hand upon your brow and gently stroke your hair. Knowing when your time has come, I promise to be there. We tried our best to save your life, we tried with all our might. But the virus had the upper hand and your body couldn't fight. I'm sorry, but we spoke today regarding your dear mum. I'm sad to say she passed away. Her time had finally come. We tried our best to make her feel that we loved her as you would. She fought so hard to her final breath. We did everything we could. In her final minutes, we gave her love like we would a family member. But she didn't have her family there, and that's what I'll remember. Be kind.
And now Hannah and Pharrell will read a poem from the staff of maternity about the way we're in it together.
Midwife calling, we're here for you, community delivery and all the way through.
We know you feel anxious, we too feel the stress, but we're in it together and we'll do our best.
Sad times we are in, loved ones have been lost, COVID lockdown, we've all felt the cost.
New lives are still coming, there is much to rejoice. You can't see our smile, but you can hear our voice.
The masks that we wear don't change what we do. Ladies of Cumbria, we're still here for you.
So thank you for being so patient and kind. New rules, new ways, new methods we'll find.
We know it is hard, but we thank you so much. We promise you'll still get the personal touch.
When lockdown is over and new rules aren't so tight, look to the future, seek out the light.
Times are uncertain, there's lots of maybes, but we are still here to welcome your babies.
One thing we can all remember is the Thursday evening clap for carers that most of us, I think, were part in at our front door or at the different hospitals across the county. Here in Carlisle, Daniel, who was playing as we gathered here, was playing each Thursday evening and now plays some of what he played on those Thursdays. Now a piece written by those working in the care sector, read by Councillor Bowles.
It is an honour and a privilege to be here this evening to read this poem on behalf of the carers. It was written by Helen Horsley, who is a social worker with Cumbria County Council. And I think we all remember Thursday evening clapping. Clap for the carers. Who are they, we see? The people who care for us day after day. The people who cook, the people who clean, the people who wash us and make our lives seem a little less daunting, a little less hard. So clap for the carers or write them a card and let them and others who care for us know how greatly we value them being in tow. The people who bypass their needs for our own. So clap for the carers, make your love known.
Thank you all for your part in that section. Our second theme is to give thanks. We can't, as I've said, forget the personal cost of all this and the cost that the pandemic continues to be. For 3 NHS staff families in particular, there was the heartbreak of bereavement. Members of the chaplaincy team across the county now carry a candle and a miner's lamp, which burn now in memory of those who have died.
Prayer of thanksgiving. Living God, you have lit the day with the sun's light, and the midnight with shining stars. Lighten our hearts with the bright beams of your love, and so preserve us in the doing of your will, that at the last we may shine forever with all your saints. Amen.
So our third section. It's all too easy to find ourselves caught up with the immediate demands of our work. And that's true whatever our role is within the life of our county. I believe it's true for those working in the health and care services in the face of all the demands they meet. So in this third section, we take a moment to reflect. And to help us, we listen to words from the Quran and from the New Testament. And between those readings, we hear a ballad written by David Webster from Morecambe Bay NHS Foundation Trust, and two pieces from service users of mental health services. So first, the reading from the Quran.
Thank you very much for having me. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون. It is not piety that you turn your face to the east and to the west. True piety is this: to believe in God and the last day, the angels, the book, and the prophets, and to give from one's wealth, however cherished it may be, to kinsmen and orphans, the needy, the traveller, beggars, and to ransom the slave, to perform the prayer, to pay the alms. And they who fulfill their covenant when they have engaged in a covenant, and endure with fortitude, misfortune, hardship, and peril. These are they who are true in their faith. These are the truly God-fearing. Thank you very much.
to you 2 poems by 2 service users of our mental health services. Isolation for the nation. Isolation for the nation is the epidemic. That was a creation in what we struggle in a muddle. God knows we're all in a fuddle. But there is light at the end of the tunnel as we find the British spirit once again. To beat this epidemic again and again. So no need to fear, the pain will fade again. Second poem, Isolation. Isolation, incarceration, penalties given for insubordination, can't see family or go to the shops, much more of this and my head might pop. Can't speak my mind or voice my views, too many people brainwashed by MSM news. The wedge between us drives us further apart, but we can come together by the love of art. I write this poem with hope and inspiration, so let's wake up people and save our nation.
Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything. It is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven."
I've given Archdeacon Richard Pratt the enviable task of quizzing not one but 2 bishops. So he'll ask questions and we're hoping the bishops will reply.
Bishop James, you are the Church of England's lead bishop on health and social care. Could you reflect on the reality of the pandemic for the NHS and care sectors, and the humanity of and the stress on the people working in these areas and on their families?
Thank you, Richard. I think there are 3 areas really of stress that I've been very conscious of talking to people who are working in the NHS and have been during this period: physical, emotional and spiritual. From a physical point of view, obviously there have been things like the huge volume of the work that they've had to undertake, the very long hours that they've been working, and the exhaustion that they've experienced. We heard a bit about that in those remarkable poems earlier on in the service. And then from an emotional point of view, I think one of the main things has been coping with the death of so many patients, and also, of course, colleagues, and all the worry about whether or not one will contract coronavirus oneself. And the obstacles there have been to the normal human contact, all the PPE, the masks, and all the rest that there have been. And then particularly in care homes and in the care sector, dealing with relatives, especially when those relatives haven't been able to be with those they love, not least during their last days, perhaps when they're dying, and who have not been able to say goodbye. Tremendous emotional toll on the carers. And then from a spiritual point of view, trying to face up to some of the big questions that confront all of us. Where is God in all of this? Why does God allow this kind of thing to happen? What about all the suffering? Hard choices to be made,
perhaps not so much here in this county, but certainly in many parts of the country, there's a choice of who has the ventilator and who doesn't. And the worries about people with other illnesses, such as cancer, who perhaps haven't been able to come forward for checks, and so on, and huge uncertainty about the future. And from the point of view of the families of our NHS workers and carers, worrying about the safety, the physical safety and health of their family members, but also worrying about how best to support them and help them and keep them going through what is turning out to be a long haul.
Thank you. I'm very aware of one particular person I know who works in the blood transfusion service actually, and she lived apart from her family for weeks and weeks and weeks to keep them safe while she kept on working. That just struck me as a huge cost, so thank you for that reflection. Bishop Paul, we are here for all health and care staff and all the other people in all the different bits of our complex health service, pharmacists, everybody. But at the front of our minds must be Simon and Anthony and Cecilia and their families who are here. Could you share with us your thoughts about them?
I'm delighted to speak this evening here, and I am here with the prayers and the support of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Lancaster, which starts in Preston and covers up to Carlisle, the Scottish border. My thoughts are not limited just to my Catholic congregation, a Catholic flock. We're invited to go beyond those boundaries. We're invited to reach out to everyone and anyone in our care of one another. And so this evening I particularly welcome the traditions that come together for this service, and sense in some ways that perhaps during these times new traditions are being formed, new traditions of care and value are being found in our society. Remembering Simon and Anthony and Cecilia brings us to the very sharp end of this pandemic. Lives lost, loved ones gone. People in these times look to one another for strength. But what a tragedy it is when the one you look to, the one you go to find that strength, is cruelly taken from you. It is a great challenge to faith in a good and powerful, all-powerful God when such things are allowed to happen. Faith can be challenged in a very real way. It can be damaged. It itself can be a victim of this pandemic. My reflection on this, I suppose, is a reflection that takes me back, takes me down into my own tradition and the fundamental roots of my faith, the words of Jesus, which are given to us for the most difficult, for the darkest times in our lives. And when I was a little boy growing up in a place called Garstown, just down the M6 before you hit Preston, In those days we were learning a thing called the Catechism, and it was 300 and something questions and answers to help us know our faith. And we were tested on it, and we were punished for not knowing it. And I said a prayer, God, could you please do something about it? And he did. He changed it so that we no longer had to learn the Catechism. But I remember the first two questions and answers have stuck. And in my latter years, they've given me something to come back to, as though to an old friend, as though to something sure and comforting that for many years I'd taken for granted. The two questions, I won't test you on them. Play it fair. The first question was, who made you? And the answer is, God made me. And then the second question, why did God make you? And the answer, God made me to know him, to love him, and serve him in this world, and to be happy with him forever in the next. And so in those two questions and answers we have, this is maybe the juice of the reflection that I offer to you. We have an origin of life. We have a purpose to know God, to love and serve. And we have an ultimate destination when this world has finished with us. It doesn't mean that we have the comfort we might like, but it means we have our origins in an eternal love. It means whatever our status, whatever good or whatever struggle we've had in any particular day, whatever sorrow, whatever's gone right, whatever's gone wrong, whether we're working or retired, whether we're sick or in the prime, whether we're at our wits' end or we're just managing to hold things together, we have a purpose to know God, love and serve. And then, as and when the time comes, whatever this life has been to us, we have somewhere waiting, somewhere where there is nothing to spoil it, somewhere where we can just know that none of our good people, good friends, good things will be taken away from us. And so that's what I offer you as a reflection. Our origin in eternal love. Our purpose in life, whatever we can do, whatever we are, however we define ourselves. And ultimately, a destination beyond the reach of anything that can spoil it. A place where it will be all right. I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. And because it's particularly appropriate perhaps that today is All Saints' Day, and we are thinking about all of God's saints in the communion of heaven, and there Simon, Anthony and Cecilia too. Bishop James, the pandemic made us reconsider the importance of care and service, but sadly we may be slipping back into taking them for granted again. How do you think we could more permanently and properly value them?
I guess this relates both to the care that we see taking place within the NHS, the care that we ourselves offer to others in our various communities, but also the care that takes place in our care homes and from so many carers in people's own homes. And thinking about that first, social care, I think we have, in this country, we have got to sort out social care. And we've got to sort out questions of staffing and status and the training and the pay of carers. we've got to sort out the whole business of the way in which social care is funded. And in fact, the Church of England is setting up a commission to look at all this, but I've also put in for a select committee from the House of Lords to get a cross-party consensus on how that can happen and how we can start more permanently valuing the people who are doing such a fantastic job across the country. Second, I think for all of us, by modelling and by teaching the fundamental importance of relationships right at the heart of everything that we are and everything that we do. That's one of the things that has been so wonderful to see and so impressive over these last months. The kind of relationships that have been developed, the sort of care that's been offered, not least by people phoning and taking shopping and running food banks and so on and so on, all around the county and the country. And perhaps in particular we can more permanently and properly value the importance of service and care by making sure that we not only preach but also live out the gospel of Christ, which is all about service, the service of others. Jesus Christ, who came not to be served but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many, putting other people's needs first, and very counterintuitively in our society, engaging in self-sacrifice. As last week down in London, we were filming, without any audience, the Festival of Remembrance to be broadcast on BBC on next Saturday. And one of the things that we did in the service for that festival was to repeat the Royal British Legion prayer, which is the prayer of St. Ignatius Loyola, which begins, "Teach us, good Lord, to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost," and so on. And it's that prayer which I think sums up everything that we need to be doing and saying and living out if we are to embed this notion of service more permanently in our society.
Thank you. One of the best schools in the world, and it's a school here in Carlisle, had a very simple rule: we look after each other. So thank you for underlining that for us. Bishop Paul, the impact of the virus on physical health and on the NHS is very much in the media. So is the economic impact. But the impact on mental and spiritual health is rarely mentioned. Could you reflect on these for us?
Tempted to say no. I don't think I'd get away with it. I'm not here because I'm a particular expert in these fields, and it may well be, probably is the case, that many of you could stand here and say something far more profound and worth hearing. So don't belittle yourselves. It may well be that you have the best answer. But in response to what you say, the reflection on the damage that is being done to us, mental and spiritual and emotional, these have been touched on already in some of the wonderful poems and song that have been shared, and the readings as well, and the prayers. I'm also conscious that no single tradition of faith or ideology stands out as saving us from the impact, from suffering the damage that is happening to us, particularly in these days. Those wounds that are inflicted on us, those wounds that many of you are probably nursing, they don't show on the outside, they don't come up in a great bruise. It's internal. Ways of carrying those wounds. Next Sunday, as Bishop James has mentioned, Remembrance Sunday, we will remember those who have given their lives in defence of nations and peace in so many wars and so much conflict. Those who came back alive, it was also at a cost. Those families wounded who didn't go to the front itself, but were no less victims of warfare. Similarly with this pandemic, it isn't just those who are in care, in hospital, in the front line, who are carrying the wounds. The extent of the collateral damage is immense. The simple, single thought I would put before us this evening is the value of carrying those wounds, the value of recognizing those wounds, whether it be the ones you see in yourself or those you sense in one another. And I'll just use a picture, if I may, to help us focus. When Christ rose from the dead, if you remember, he was recognized because he carried the wounds from the crucifixion. The damage done to his hands, his feet, and his side. In his risen body, the wounds were still there. It seems he was emphasizing, why did he not do away with them? Why did he not rise perfect with the wounds healed completely? And when he appeared to the disciples, imagine them seeing the wounds. Imagine what those wounds would have caused them to feel. They had inflicted those wounds in a way by their betrayal. They had stood back, they had been afraid, they'd been scared, they'd failed, perhaps. And these wounds were recognition. Look, Jesus could have said, look, this is to remind you that you failed me. But he didn't say that. I like to think that he carried those wounds in order to say, look, you see these wounds? They're not with me to show how much you failed. But these wounds are with me to show how much I love you. And if we can do something like that, a transformation of the wounds of this pandemic, so that they become not just evidence of how damaged and how vulnerable we are, but what we are prepared to carry and suffer for the sake of one another. And then we can honour those wounds. We can respect them. And they can become how we measure one another's value and love. So that's my reflection on that.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us that we're none of us all right, that we can be kind to each other. Now, the same question really to both bishops without an interruption from me. Bishops, this year has been hard, and it looks like it's going to get hard again. But our reading from St. Matthew's Gospel talks about light. Can you offer us some words of hope?
Thank you. That is the one thing that as a nation we need most at the moment. And in that reading from Matthew's Gospel, from the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says that we are the light of the world. You are the light of the world, he says. And there are two rays of real hope that come out of that for me. One is that everything we do for others, all the caring and service that we've been thinking about in this service, everything we do for others is a reflection of God's love for each of them and for each of us. Because Jesus also said, I am the light of the world. You are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. And it's his light, his love that we express. Bishop Paul was talking a moment ago about the way in which that love shows each of us how valuable we are, how precious we are in the sight of God. And I think that is our chief message to everybody, not least with all the challenges of mental health issues, which I think we're only just beginning to see, that each of us is infinitely precious and valuable to God. But the second ray of hope is that just as everything we do for others is a reflection of God's love, so nothing we do for others is wasted, because whether people believe in God or not, our actions, the way we care for them, the service that we offer, the sacrifice that we make, our actions bring glory not to ourselves, but to Him.
I would love the opportunity to speak with each one of you here, but I don't think I've got it. So you're lucky. But from what Bishop James has just said, taking from the Gospel what Jesus tells us, you are the light, you are the salt. Some of you are very young, so your childhood wasn't all that long ago. Others of us are looking back many, many years to when we were children. And we just think of yourself as being a child way back then, where you grew up, where you went to school, where you played with your friends, before you decided what you were going to do with your life, before you chose a career, before you got into whatever it is you're into now, before you found your own family and maybe changes to where you live. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know who you are and what your skills are, what your weaknesses are, where your limits are, what you've decided is you, and what you've decided is definitely not you? How much of the small print do we get to read before we set off on life's journey? We never saw this bit in the small print, did we? And yet, some people have grown immensely in these difficult days because they have discovered something in themselves that they didn't even know was there. They are still discovering what is within. And I think that is a tremendous realization for all of us, no matter what faith or ideology or whatever gets us through life, that you are not yet the finished product, that you have not yet known all about yourself. The small print that we haven't bothered reading isn't all bad news, all irrelevant. There are things in there that you are just about to discover or have discovered in these times. And these difficulties are helping us to realize that they draw out of us qualities and resilience and love that we didn't know was there. We didn't know we were capable of. Even strong people have limits, but we can sometimes set our limits too quickly. So that is my hope, that even in difficulties, even when, you, as I say, you have been wounded, even when you've been damaged, even when you feel as though bits of you have been lost, that they've been paralysed or crippled, that's not the full story. That's not the end. You're still growing, you're still discovering, you're still developing, you're still maturing. Gifts like wisdom and resilience, fortitude, these are still being found in you. And there's a wonderful image, going back to that image of the wounds that Jesus carried. There's a wonderful image of a wounded healer, the doctor, the nurse, the carer, themselves wounded, but working to heal, not giving up because of what's happened to them, using whatever opportunities, whatever resources, whatever relationships come their way, using those as moments for hope. We gather here as different traditions, faith traditions, and so on. But I think that in some ways, as I said, new traditions, perhaps, are being formed and found, even within these days. And us being here in this beautiful cathedral this evening is evidence of that. So I'd like to thank you for inviting myself along to take part in this.
Thank you to our bishops and to Rashid and to James for reading from the Holy Scriptures.
The group that planned this evening were clear that the last section should give us a chance to celebrate what has been and is being achieved and to dedicate ourselves for what the future holds. The prayers that we now have from the chaplaincy team will help us to do that.
Almighty God, Creator, Sustainer and Redeemer, speak to us in our distress. Speak of your love. Speak of your healing. Speak of your salvation.
Forgive us that we have lived our lives in such a way that we have let this pandemic come upon us, that we have managed our resources to the detriment of others, and that we have lived our lives with little regard for your holy presence.
As we pray, we grieve the loss of our freedom to gather, to shop, to socialise as we have been accustomed. We grieve the damage that has caused us, that this has caused to our well-being and community, and for the isolation we have felt.
We grieve the loss of our colleagues, Simon, Cecilia and Anthony, and we pray for their families, giving thanks for their dedication, commitment and sacrifice.
Prayer of petition. We hold in prayer our hospitals and all healthcare settings across the country, praying for all our staff colleagues in this uncertain time.
both the local community we represent and our great county. Praying for God's blessing on all who live, work and rest within our boundaries.
We hold in prayer our desire for an end to this pandemic, praying for all who are working to keep us safe, for policymakers and vaccine creators.
We hold our own personal needs in prayer, praying that God will grant to each of us that which we need for the blessing of all people, the foresight to see and the intellect to apply his love in our own context.
We pray, asking that the light we represent may illumine the darkness in this world, in the name of the one who sustains us. Amen.
So a final thank you to all those who have taken part and for all of you being here for this event this evening. And now I invite Monsieur Goodliff, on behalf of churches together in Cumbria, to join the church leaders in a final prayer of blessing.
To God's gracious mercy and protection, we commit you.
The Lord bless you and keep you.
The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you.
And the Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you, and give you his peace, now and forever. Amen.